Welcome everyone to the DigiTech Leaders Series. My name is Paul Foster and I head up Skylan Recruitment. Now I use this series really just to focus and shine the light on certain individuals that have done incredibly well within the DigiTech space. And today I'm really happy to be inviting Peter onto the series. Now Peter is definitely a leader when it comes to customer success. So thanks ever so much for joining us. How are you doing today, Peter?
Very well, thank you very much. Hopefully this parrot's floating around here.
It's the perfect background. So for our viewers, I suppose to give our viewers a bit of background, can you talk us through just a little bit about your background within customer success to date?
Sure. Well, my journey success probably began as far back as 2007-8 when I was starting out as a wealth manager in America. I was there working with Wells Fargo advisors, just at the start of the financial crisis, as you may remember. And they introduced, it was a time of really low confidence in the industry. And so the ideals that you utilize through customer success actually became quite popular, I'd say, through there. So they introduced a software called Envision, and it revolved around aligning investment choices with real future state objectives like retirement funds or retirement crews or kids' college costs. So it was really about aligning to an ideal future state. And it was pretty revolutionary at the time. I also adopted a fee-based approach versus upfront fees. So it's all about strategic alignment, retention, and delivering real value to the client. And I think it made sense. It aligned really well with my core values. And I wasn't until years later I realized that the type of activities that I was doing through that actually had a word for it, and that was customer success.
Wow.
And so from there, I wanted to move from financial services into TechSpace because I'm a bit of a geek at heart. I like building things and working with technology. And so I joined with high-growth HR startup Hibob years ago. And that was when I started to discover customer success in a more professional SaaS sort of context. I then later joined Total Synergy to help build out their customer success team and platform and build out their offering in Europe. It's a Sydney-based architect space company. And then more recently, I was head of customer success for Currencycloud, a prominent fintech company, helping them establish customer success as a function globally.
Brilliant. So you've gone through literally HR tech, fintech, and every other kind of tech there is, which is good. So with your experience then, Peter, because a lot of our viewers are going to be founders or CEOs or leaders within a DigiTech or SaaS business, maybe fast growth, early stage. In your experience, I suppose how soon should these businesses really start to employ or start thinking about a customer success strategy?
Sure. Well, look, there's never a bad time to start putting efforts into retaining, growing, and getting customers to value sooner. I guess it really depends on your budget, of course, and where you can put your pennies. I've seen many companies put more revenue chasing budget into sales and new business, looking to get as many new customers across the line as possible. And have strong growth numbers, and hope investment follows regardless of the cost of acquisition or looking at retention. And it's been quite a common theme in this sort of Series A, B, C sort of world where we're chasing the next investment round and want to show strong growth numbers.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the quicker your customer gets using the product, the sooner they will see the value, and the sooner you will get advocates who will start ranting and raving about their friends. And the fact is, I like the saying, is happy customers sell.
Yeah.
And I'm turning them into an asset for your business to supercharge its growth is no bad thing. So I think there's no bad time to really start thinking about customer success, and especially if you start thinking about it from the start, it will help you in the future.
Perfect. So a lot of clients that I work with, you know, they're building out, they've got their technology, they're building out sales, they're building out marketing. And a lot of the time they ask me, you know, when should we start thinking about customer success? So in your opinion, sooner the better, because ultimately, you know, if you can protect that revenue and that churn, then that can only be a good thing for the investors.
Yeah, I mean, we should really, we start off with, in companies I've been with, early growth and late stage startups. And I think, we start off with an idea and a premise that we have a gap in the market and we want to try and build to that niche, for example. But I think very quickly we start to realize that customers may want something different or something more than what we're offering. And customer success is really important, working alongside product to really inform the development team on what the customers actually want from their product. If we're trying to iterate and grow and make it as relevant as quickly as possible, having that feedback loop as early on as possible is really valuable.
Yeah. So what kind of common mistakes have you seen in your career when it comes to customer success, whether it's implementing it, not implementing it, or the way they've implemented it?
Sure. Well, obviously I've seen it implemented and not implemented in a number of different companies. And I think that's the Gainsight sponsored customer success conference in Europe, and that was interesting. Every time I go there, it's so funny that there's still a very broad understanding of what customer success means. I remember when I was hiring for a team, every single recruiter would say, well, "What do you mean by customer success exactly?" And that's just because so many different hiring managers had defined it differently in the job spec. So I think the first thing is one of the biggest mistakes I see is not knowing what it is in reality, and just labeling it or grouping a bunch of other customer sort of based job roles or specs. And I think that's a big mistake. It should really be fully understood by everybody in the senior management of the business, and then from there down, philosophically and functionally, what it is. If people watching this are in that boat, I recommend reading the Blue Book, Customer Success by. That's actually written by a few people from Gainsight, but it really is sort of the foundational book on customer success. It's moved on a little bit in the last few years, and there's some new books coming out, but definitely that is a great place to start. So not having a clear picture of what they want to achieve as well, recognizing that it touches every part of their business. It's not the shoehorn this customer thing over here. It should be really part of their entire business, and it leads into all areas, marketing and product and so forth.
Yeah.
And not getting philosophically aligned behind it. And not applying the right strategies and approaches for their product services based around the complexity of product or industry. What I mean by that is companies that take one thing that worked over here for this company and then just copy paste into their business, it might not necessarily be right. Customer success has very different ways of working depending on your customer base and how you tier it and what your product is and how complex it is. And so you really need to make sure you have an expert in there helping guide you who knows what strategies to employ when and where.
So when it comes to, that's an interesting point, when it comes to customer success, how are people defining it versus what it should be defined as? And I appreciate when I ask that question, it's quite broad, but because I've heard people, I've spoken to clients and they said, yeah, customer service, keeping the customer happy. I'm like, no, not for how I would define it, but what kind of, I suppose, definitions have you seen being used?
Sure. Well, I guess there's a few things. It's data-led and data-informed. It's proactive and it's value-driven. So you're driving towards key outcomes rather than preventing problems. So customer service is all about being on the front line, reacting to customer issues that they've discovered, and you're trying to help them with that, whether that's training or a bug or product enhancement. The customer success is all about utilizing the product and your knowledge, or service and your knowledge to drive the customer to their future states, understanding that you're trying to take them from here and getting over there. And also it's about understanding before they do potential pitfalls that they may encounter and steering them around that. It's really about being a strategic partner and driving them to an ideal future state. And that begins with onboarding and training, and then making sure they're getting more value out of the product. And that doesn't necessarily mean selling them more. But it could. There's no bad thing, but it's all about making sure you're aligning needs with functionality and with service.
But that leads nicely on, because another question that I get asked all the time is what kind of metrics should customer success teams or customer success leaders be using? You know, there's quite a few different, but in your experience, what have you found to be the most, I suppose, impactful for a team?
Yeah, I guess the one that I think is the most impactful is the one that's most relevant for you, and I think that's kind of it's not a cop out. It's to say it's quite difficult. So sales is or new business is very easy to measure because you have inputs and outputs, right? You have
Yeah.
this many calls, these are this many meetings, these this many sales, and this many conversions, and this many upsells, and blah blah blah. So you can quite quickly see immediately the impact of a new software or strategy change or a new hire or whatever, and how that impacts the life cycle of the customer, the pipeline, your pipeline. Customer success is a bit of a delay. And to jump back a little bit, what mistakes I've seen in the past as well is rushing it. And I think people go, oh, we can get it set up in 2 to 3 months. To do it properly, it'll take you at least probably 6 to 12 months because understanding, and when I say properly, I mean properly.
Yeah.
I mean, you can implement, obviously, you can get customer success managers, hire some experienced people, set up some basic processes and focus on onboarding, and you'll be doing it. But, to do it well, you really need to look before you leap. We're kind of trying to land on the moon here. And, you don't just launch a rocket and aim for the moon and go, it'll be all right, we'll figure it out on the way. We kind of need to actually do a little bit of thinking about things and analysis, and it all depends on what your baseline is. So having a lot of information around churn and understanding why customers don't see value in your product is really important to be able to enable you to understand how you can drive that perception of value in your product or service. And so I think it really depends on the function and part of CS you're considering, but CF KPI metrics, if it was pure CS, I'm looking at time to value, onboarding times, retention. So that's either logo retention or revenue retention. It really depends. Same with growth. So looking at growth and revenue. I think there's a bit more of a focus now on how we're driving revenue. That alignment between doing this and getting that in terms of revenue is very hard in customer success, but it's worth measuring. NPS is more of a lagging indicator, but that and CSAT are important for understanding impact and satisfaction, and part of a good product feedback loop as well. And CS qualified leads, case studies, referrals, those kind of things are a really good way to track the revenue impact of what customer success are doing back to sales. But it's really important to also look at developing the most important thing, I think, is an objective health score. So it's a scoring mechanism that allows you to holistically, it's a holistic number that captures objectively lots of different information about your customers and what they're doing, and drive that into an overall number that can be a key metric for the business. And it's fundamental to being able to understand where you can have impact as a customer success manager.
Okay, so obviously every business is going to have a bespoke CS strategy. From your point of view, what are some of the best techniques you've employed or you've seen out there that have actually been able to, minimize churn and reduce it?
Sure. Well, that's the name of the game. I will try and reduce churn. It can be missed if you're just going after the next sale. You can not stop to do some win-loss analysis on some why you lost there, and I think that's a mistake. At one of my previous companies, there was little to no data on why clients had churned. Went back and we did some retroactive analysis, and the results were surprising. So once you know, you can start to look at the reasons behind the reasons. So, for example, if a client churned because price option, it's not because your product was too expensive; it's because they weren't getting enough out of it or couldn't see enough value in it. So what did they not value? Were we missing features? What features were they? Why were they of value? What were they trying to achieve overall? I guess the most important how is to focus to factor these into your health score, or at least set up a way to monitor them so you can act proactively and get ahead of this churn. So if you start to see those patterns that clients usually churn when this is starting to happen, you can start to set alerts and monitor these things. So when they do start to happen, you get notified and you can intervene. And also make sure you're asking questions around these things in QBRs and other meetings, because some people are afraid to ask, are you looking at other products? Is there something that's missing? Or, look at the negative side. But they're thinking about it. They might not be bringing it up, but they're definitely the time when you bring it up, it's not the first time they've thought about it. And by getting out the dirty laundry sort of thing, you can start to deal with it and move forward, and also make sure you establish a value and re-establish value, because staying relevant in the client's mind is not just about the past deal that you did and how you helped them achieve their success, but it's also their future success. They evolve and change, and you need to move with them and become their trusted advisor, not just a vendor.
Perfect. So what about tools then? Because obviously there are lots of different tools for customer success teams on the market. Which ones would you say recommend? Which ones have been really, I suppose, beneficial for you and your teams?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it depends on the size of your business, the size of your budget, and what you're trying to manage. Is it a one-to-many kind of situation, or is it more of an enterprise type thing where you want to spend more time, or do you have a tiered base? But so I kind of qualify this with saying that these are quite generic, depend on your situation, but I find a combination of Salesforce, of course,
Yep.
because it integrates with just about everything, and is not too bad as a data displaying tool. Gains to me as a customer success leader, as it enables me to create those health scores and calls to action for my customer success team to get involved proactively, and many more things. Zen a support tool, and I've used it in the past as a customer success tool as well, but in a quite nuanced way. And it can be really good for helping to prioritize tickets, and it also ties in with Gainsight, so you can see those help scores when they're engaging with that customer and escalate things to a customer success manager. It works very well. They work very well together. Intercom is a really powerful tool. So Gainsight does have Journey Orchestrator, which is a communications tool you can use to lead people and send that message and that kind of thing. Intercom can do that as well, in a slightly different way. And in-app chat is really powerful for guidance and engagement. And then Gainsight does have some pretty cool dashboarding features, but Tableau is out there, and I think that's integrating with Gainsight soon as well, and any other kind of dashboarding software as well. Also, if you're involved a bit more on the new business side, getting some interesting software that can track activity and gamify sales a little bit for your team can help as well.
Perfect. So thinking about the team, then you've built teams, you've made them successful. What would you say are the key either skills or attributes that you look for that will, I suppose, help you to assess whether that person is going to be a good, strong customer success manager?
Sure. Well, skills are really important, obviously. I think there's a combination of things that you need when you're looking at customer success managers. And again, it depends on the complexity of your product or service. But domain knowledge is very important. And there was actually a really good talk done on this, which if anybody watching this contacts me, I'll try and dig out the link to. But it was at Pulse, and they were talking about what to look for, what kind of makeup do customer success managers have within different stages of growth for a company.
Okay.
So early stage, which is late stage, and kind of the balance between domain knowledge and customer success management experience and those kind of things. It was really interesting. Again, that really depends. So if you have a very complex product, domain knowledge is really important.
Yeah.
And if you can't teach it quickly, then you probably need to hire for that. But the number one thing I hire for is empathy, because you can teach people new skills, but you can't teach them to genuinely care about the customer.
Yeah.
Or care about the impact of what you're trying to achieve, and that will drive all the right behaviors. If they're morally aligned to trying to achieve the best result for the customer, they'll do all the right things instinctually, and a lot of common sense at a base level is common. So a lot of customer success at a base level is common sense. So
Yeah.
falling back on those good things is useful. That said, knowing how to apply customer success and having the skills to show this, being data led, organized, soft client facing skills are really important. Being able to manage time well, phone manner, problem solving skills, curiosity is a very important one for me, because then they're always going to be trying to uncover new reasons and new value and new data. So I think those are the essential things I look for.
Perfect. And then in terms of looking at your teams, what would you say is the difference between a good customer success manager versus an excellent customer success manager? You can either use your own yourself or somebody that you've worked with.
Well, I always think I've got a lot to learn, and I'm reminded that every time I go to Pulse or speak to excellent people in the industry, and that's what excites me most about customer success. Is always new ideas out there. But I think the difference between a great CSM versus an exceptional CSM would be customer success managers. I've met them who kind of go through the motions of customer success and practice it as a profession. I'd say the exceptional ones really care. They really care. They're really excited. I'm not saying that, they don't have a lot of emotional intelligence or not, and they can't, they get too emotionally involved. I'm saying that they generally care. They feel so proud when they achieve a good result for the customer, and they feel disappointed when they can't. And I think if you can manage that professionally and you can drive the right feedback internally, you can drive cross-departmental change, and you'll have the motivation to do that, which can be quite difficult at times, but you'll be coming from the right place. So I think those are the two things. That's the one thing I think that the difference between a great CSM and an exceptional CSM.
So it's the emotion behind it, and then the motivation to kind of, I suppose, be accountable and go the extra mile for the client.
It's to be aligned here and here, right? So you got to have your heart in the right place and your head in the right place at the same time. Too much of this or too much of that, and you'll go off piste.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally, what in terms of customer success is moving on, as you just alluded to, you're always learning, and everybody in the industry is learning. How do you see customer success in the future in terms of its, I suppose, its ability to evolve?
Well, it sort of is becoming this amorphous being of is stretching into all departments of a company, and I sort of see in like 20 years time there just being customer success, and then everything sort of slotting into product sales, marketing, and it just seems to be, and it would make sense if that's the case. Like the rise of the chief customer officer, and working closely with chief revenue officers, those lines are blurring more and more. I think that what we're seeing in the industry as a whole is a natural move towards customer success managers having a bit more commercial impact on the business. So there's this movement towards customer growth, which I've always found quite easy because I've always been both sides of the pipeline. I've always kind of taken leads through to completion and then helped grow them. So that's just naturally sort of in my thought process. But I think, and formerly people kept pre and post sale very separate. I think those lines started to blur about 2 years ago. We started to see customer success come in much more early and be more in pre-sale conversations with leads. And we've also started to see customer success work more with retention and renewals, or even have tech touch to do that but using customer success to maintain such strong relationships and strategic alignment that you don't need to have a renewal meeting, necessarily a dedicated one. It very much depends on, again, I've said this all the way through this because it really does, but it very much depends on the complexity of the product and your customer base and how you tier it. Because it's not always, sometimes it does make sense to have a dedicated account management team that is responsible for retention and upsell, because those deals are so complex.
Yeah.
But in many ways, I see the future being customer success sort of being more involved there commercially, and hopefully it will be standard practice for customer success and product to work together. And there'll be a lot more tools out there to help manage product feedback loops from customers to help drive product development as well. So I think those two things are happening more and more.
That's wonderful. That's great insight. Peter, I want to thank you for your time today. I hope that the viewers of this have gained as much insight as I have. It's always good to see how things are going to be moving on in the future. So thanks ever so much. And let's have another interview in a DigiTech Leaders Series in the future, just to see how well those predictions are.
Great. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks ever so much. Bye, Peter.